back now on Louisville's offseason, and we'll maybe touch a little bit on hoops there with Alexis Cubit of the Courier Journal. Alexis, thanks so much for joining us this morning. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having Billy. I am doing great. It was 70 degrees here yesterday, so I'm wonderful.
We've all thawed out, but Louisville has certainly heated up in the transfer portal this offseason. And Jeff Brohm building up this 2026 roster, for really that push for an ACC championship. He's back at his alma mater and looking to take it to the next level. But a lot of changes for this Cardinals team. As a high level overview, what has the really kind of maybe end of this season with some of the job rumors all the way through this transfer portal and contract talks with Louisville been like covering that Louisville program right now?
No, it's been insane because I don't even know who's going to be here in a couple weeks for spring football. I mean, you talk about the portal and, you know, programs like Michigan trying to hire Jeff away, but then you lose your defensive coordinator, you lose your D-line coach, you lose your tight ends coach. Now recently you lose your O-line coach. It's just been so much of an overhaul, with losing, was that 4 or 5 of your 9 position coaches, and then this addition of a bunch of defensive assistants that don't really have like specific positions. And yeah, and then you get to the portal and those additions and some of the losses that they've had. So no, I don't even know what an off season in football actually looks like, because it seems like there's always something happening within the sport.
I was going to say there is just no off season. My wife makes so much fun of me when I say, "Oh, this month is going to quiet down," I'm sure. But no, we don't get that. Our hope can only be for February to be maybe a little quiet. July too, but nonetheless, Louisville getting ready to get after it in spring football with a new quarterback, Lincoln Kienholz, and Jeff Brohm did speak with you guys, around that National Signing Day-ish timeframe. What were your takeaways hearing maybe a little bit more about the new signal caller for the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think they kind of feel like he's a bit of a hidden gem. He's an extremely talented player from South Dakota. I actually did a story on him and was looking it up, and I believe he was the only one of only 2 top 300 24/7 sports recruits from South Dakota in the last 10 years. Obviously had some time there at Ohio State, won a national championship with them, didn't really play, but was behind some really good quarterbacks. And so I think he's going to be a little different in that he is more of a dual threat. And so you're going to see a lot more run plays, is something that Brohm had mentioned, that are, specifically designed for him. We got a little bit of that with Tyler Miller the past couple of years, but I think this is the quarterback that's actually going to really expand and not just be like the pocket passer that Jeff Brohm is known to put in the league.
Also averaged nearly 20 points per game on the basketball side of things in high school too. So really accomplished athlete there for Louisville. And he's got a ton of playmakers around him. Obviously retaining Isaac Brown is fun. And that backfield that Louisville is going to have once again is impressive, especially if he can stay healthy. But they go out and add Trey Richardson. They add some other pieces around him, upgrade the offensive line. What was the work done on the offensive side? And what was your kind of overall take of, okay, you had Miller Moss, you had some of the talent that they had, but they couldn't just punch through the ceiling at times offensively this year, and in part due to injuries.
Yeah. No, it was honestly a little frustrating to watch the offense sometimes, because it was just like, what is happening? Like,
Yeah.
why did you do that? But again, they came into this season thinking they were going to have, year 2 with Isaac and Duke, and that, 2-headed, 3-headed monster, if you count Keywan there. And then they just didn't have that because of the injuries. So, and even for some of Miller's struggles, he came in thinking he was going to have more of a help in the backfield more than he did at USC. So that definitely, obviously, in my opinion, played a part in some of those struggles. But when you look at this class, yeah, talk about offseason craziness. That was a 3-day, 4-day span where Isaac is like, I'm going to leave. And then it's like, LOL, JK, I'm staying now. And then called his own press conference to talk to media about that, him and his agent. Um, yeah, wild times, man, wild times. But no, I feel like they made some good moves. They feel one thing that's not talked about, tight end. I feel like they brought in two really good tight ends at a position that has not always been the most stable over the past 3 years. It's always been, a new starter, or they experience a lot of turnover with players leaving and maybe being a little young. But I thought they brought in some really good ones. Brody Foley being the one in particular that I'm thinking about with, NFL talent, was thought to possibly have entered the draft this year, but decided to stay in college for another year and now come to Louisville. And, bringing in Paul Petrino to kind of guide, not the official tight ends coach, but to lead the tight ends in that room. And the Petrino name is famous in Louisville, obviously. And so, yeah, that's one thing I'm looking at. And they really didn't have to do much in the running backs room just because they brought back Isaac and Keywan. But I do think, making that addition there in addition to getting one or two from the high school ranks was key. So obviously they won't have Trey Richardson this spring because he's nursing an injury that was lingering from his time there at Vandy. But they've got some other guys that can step up and do some really good things. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they can kind of, I don't want to say rebuild, but just kind of maybe make amends for some of those offensive breakdowns and different things that we're not accustomed to expecting from a Jeff Brohm offense.
Well, and look, they it seems like they're going to be able to lean on the defense a little bit here this season. I mean, the defensive line that they've invested in at Louisville is really impressive. Tyler Thompson, goes there, and a bunch of teams across the country wanted him from North Carolina. And not only that, you get Lubin back, AJ Green back. That front is really impressive. Let's start there. How much did they focus on that group as a whole and making sure that was built up? And give us a little bit too on the interior of that defensive line. Is it matching the kind of star power that's on the edge?
Yeah, well, just to take a step back even further, to move Mark Ivy back to coaching D lines is huge. I mean, he was very instrumental in Yaya Diaby and the first 2 years of Ashton Gelati, who's only playing with the Chiefs. That was huge. I think and then now to have him as the co-defensive coordinator, I think a lot of Mark Ivy. I think he's a really underrated coach that I think has head coach potential one day, and just the way that players respond to him and what he's been able to do at every position he coaches, because then he goes and coaches the linebackers and they have success and are one of the most consistent positions over the past couple of years. But no, I mean, I think this D line has a lot of really good potential, like you mentioned, Clev and Tyler. And that's obviously, they're always going to prioritize the trenches, whether that's on offense or defense. And so I think they got a lot of really good pieces there to complement some of the losses that they've had. And I do expect them to be just as good, if not better, this season, not only with just the pieces that they've added, but also with that coaching switch. Well, not coaching switch, obviously Mark Hagan left, but just plugging Ivy into that spot.
The secondary, did they help out there too? They add Cohen and Trieger to that mix. I mean, did they I guess check the boxes there as well defensively?
Yeah, I mean, safety is always weird because I feel like they never really have the depth that they want at that position, but they have guys that do enough to kind of make up for that. Losing 3 of your 4 starting defensive backs is not ideal.
No.
But again, like you mentioned, Cohen, a bunch of other guys. I mean, getting Tayon Holloway back was really big. Yeah, that was definitely, it had to be, an important position. And, they still have some younger guys that are coming up in the ranks in the DB room in the secondary, but I think it was very important for them to make those additions in the cornerback room. And even, getting somebody like Ben Perry back, is that like star hybrid kind of position there who, spent, was that a year or two? I don't even know what year it is, a year or two at Louisville before he went to UCLA, and that obviously didn't work out. And so now he's back. So it's kind of like you have a new player, but not really, just because he is familiar with the system. had a year away, and he'll be on his third position coach because obviously with Ron English leaving, now Brandon Sharp is been elevated and promoted to the safeties coach. So yeah, safety will definitely be a room that there's going to be a lot of questions. With the corners, I feel like it's a little bit more stable just because you have Steve Ellis back and you see what he's been able to do with, Jarvis Brownlee and Quincy Riley and putting those guys in the leagues and even guys from that predate his time at Louisville. So, even though Tayon is the only experienced returner from the secondary, I do think that at least for the corners, having Steve Ellis back will provide some stability and getting some of those other guys along, because I do expect that to be, a good part of this defense and to be hopefully a strength in improving on how they defend the pass, because they did improve in that area last year from 2 years ago. So you just want to kind of see those incremental steps continue to be taken.
A top 10 portal class for Louisville, according to On3's rankings. Jeff Brohm, let's go back to, I guess, all of the jobs and the this and the what he needs to build Louisville into this program that he envisions it to go capture a national championship. How much of this offseason and the transfer portal success is a doubling down of Louisville on the football side of things, or is this just a plan coming together? Is kind of what steps are they taking to elevate, like we've seen at a Virginia Tech and some of those programs that have reinvested in the transfer portal in a sense?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is putting together a super team, if you will, of recruiting department. I mean, they added, 2 new positions to that. So it's not just, well, technically 3 in last year's calendar year because you brought in Vince in the summertime, and then 2 new positions fairly recently over the last, 3 or 4 months, something like that. So, I mean, that's commitment right there. So it's not necessarily right away where you're saying like, okay, we're just going to throw a bag at the football program to go get players, but we're going to actually put people in place that, know what they're talking about and know what makes sense, as far as we're not going to go pay a third string, offensive lineman $1.5 million, whereas if they don't have all of those resources, they might think that's worth it. So now having an actual team together that can say, hey, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to target. They can have an overall evaluation where it's more perspectives and where it kind of frees Jeff up to really just coach, because that's honestly like just what he loves to do. I mean, I don't think he really cares to get caught up in all that other stuff. He's just like, hey, I've got people for that. So I definitely think he delegates from that perspective and enjoys being able to do that. And so with that now, he's got people around that he trusts, one of which Nate Dennison, who was at Purdue with him, brought him here. And then Vince brought one of his guys from Kentucky, Chase, to come in. So it's a group of guys that are trusted within the room, or within the program rather, to be able to, make those decisions and find the right pieces and evaluate the roster and see what's of most importance. And then you go to, okay, now that we have this team together, what do y'all need? And I do believe that, at least from what I've gathered, there is a sense of commitment into giving the program what they need. I mean, they're not going to back a Brinks truck in at this point. I don't know if the bourbon money is that good, but they have enough to where they feel like, they're having those conversations with athletic director Josh Hearns, like, hey, here's how much we need to build, a potential national championship roster. And I do believe that there is buy-in and there are resources that Josh is putting in and giving Jeff and Vince and those guys to be able to, be competitive. Because, I mean, I think you mentioned it, like, they've been right there every single year for Brohm. It's just one of those weird losses. It was Pitt, it was Stanford. I mean, this year it was a little bit of a snowball. So it was a few programs, including SMU. But it's always been like that one step. So, maybe now with just a little different personnel and building up that roster, they can finally get over that hump to, just get into the CFP and then see what happens from there, especially with, the expansion has happened for a couple years now. It's been in place. So just get in the top 12, man. And I mean, you see what Miami did when they just kind of got in, and it's one of those things where, like with everything, with the postseason, baseball, basketball, whatever, just get in. That's the goal, is to just get there and then have the ball kind of roll your way, or anything can happen at that point.
We'll end on this. What gives you some confidence that Louisville is going to accomplish that and get into the playoff? And then what makes you sit there and say, I just don't know if they're going to get it done this year?
Yeah. I think the defense still is the thing where I'm like, okay, they can do this. I thought they had a very good defense last year. It wasn't perfect, of course, because nobody ever is, but I felt like they had enough to be a CFP contending team. It was just, the offense. I laugh when people talk about the Virginia game that went into overtime, because they say, oh, the defense gave up a touchdown and they lost the game in overtime. But I'm thinking, okay, so let's go back and actually like unpack this for a second, because they gave up 7 points. No, it wasn't 7. I don't even know if it was 7 points in regulation. But you can't have pick sixes and fumble returns for touchdowns and expect your defense to to overcome that in a way if they're consistently getting stops and you're not scoring. So the other way around, you're giving the team the ball to score. So no, I definitely felt like the defense would be the thing that gives me confidence for them to be able to take that next step and to make some more history. The pause would just be, those trap games, man. It's always something. I thought 2 years ago last year with Tyler Shuck, I felt like that was a really, really good team. They had a very difficult schedule, but I felt like that was a team that, if things kind of moved their way a little good, they could, make the college football playoffs. So it's just eliminating that. I don't know if it's it's a Lent season, sackcloth and ashes kind of thing, where they just need some more prayer, or like a cultural, whatever. But they just got to avoid that trap game, whatever that may look like.
Alexis, we really appreciate all the time. Looking forward to checking in with you around spring football and seeing what the Cardinals look like out there in practice.
All right. Thanks, Billy. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks so much, Alexis Cubit, joining us of the Courier Journal, covering Louisville football and basketball and beyond. We appreciate her so much for her time on this Thursday morning. Look, let's wrap up the show with this, guys. First of all, do want to remind you guys, yes, aviation. Alexis knows what she's talking about. Great input. She is sharp, and that's why we love having her on. Like I said over the last couple of weeks, we're trying to hit just about every ACC team we can during February, ahead of spring ball, however you want to match it up to the start of spring ball. We're going to try to take a peek at every single ACC school. And of course, we appreciate all of our friends that join us on the show. And Alexis is great. Do want to say we also appreciate, as the weekend nears, everyone, we appreciate free shipping. And you get free shipping with our friends at Socorro Tequila. Click the link in the episode description, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're listening on Apple or Spotify. The link is right below this episode. And you go to SocorroTequila.com and you get free shipping on 3 bottles. So you can try the Añejo, the Blanco, the Reposado. Try their award-winning tequila today. And you don't even have to go to the store and search for it. It could be delivered right to your door. I think I got mine in like 3 days. Really quick shipping there from our friends at Socorro Tequila. And again, it's free shipping when you order 3 bottles or more. You might as well try it. It's award-winning. It's agave yeast and water, and they just do an incredible job with their tequila. So we're proud to partner with them. Make sure you start off your weekend right with our friends at Socorro. If you're flying American Airlines, that is their tequila on their flight as well. So you can try that there.